Okay, yeah, so today we're going to be talking a little bit about Brightspace quizzes, just how to create a quiz and just how the quizzes area works inside of Brightspace. So I've already started here inside of my course, just called Rich New Class, and I'm in my home area. So if you just click on quizzes at the top, that should be one of the links that you always have at the nav bar. Next semester, we are going to open it up so people can change that, but we do suggest always having the quizzes there. There's some professors don't use quizzes, but that's okay. So when you first come onto the quizzes area, you'll have this first link. It says manage quizzes, and you'll have all the quizzes that you have available. I just have the one that's listed here now. You can click edit categories if you have categories for your different quizzes. It's up to you. I really don't do that myself, but let's say you have different quizzes for different topics or different areas, that type of thing. You can do that. But it can get complicated. So it's really up to you if you want to do that. A lot of times the title will have describe the quiz enough that you don't really need to do that. Under more actions, if you have more than one quiz, you can reorder them. Maybe I can show you that a little later, since there's only one right now. It gives you the option to hide the quizzes or make them visible or delete them. For example, here, this one has this little eye that indicates that it's hidden. So if I click this here, click more actions and make visible. Now that goes away. Now the students can see it. So by default, I think when you create the quiz, it's already hidden in case you're working on it and it's like a draft. And that's one way to unhide it. And there's another way I'll show you here in just a little bit. But first of all, let me take you to the question library. Now, the question library is just like the pool inside of Sakai. It's just an area where all your questions were stored. What I've found, though, is you kind of have to import that into each of your new classes. It doesn't kind of move around, which would be nice, but these are just a lot of questions I've had in other test sites and so forth. And they do create folders. That might be a good way to do it. You can have it by class. You just click on it, have your questions listed. Some of the tutorials I saw suggested going to the question library to actually make your questions and to kind of have them all listed there. And then when you actually create your quiz, you can grab them from the library itself. So that's an option. But when you just create a quiz and create the questions inside the quiz, they're automatically loaded into your library, just for future reference. So let's kind of go back to our main area. We had done editing questions here. And it should take us back to the manage quizzes. Okay. So let's go to the meat and potatoes here. Let's go ahead and create a new quiz. When you do that, it's going to give you lots of different options here. The first thing, though, is every quiz needs a name. So we're just going to go and give it a name. We'll call this one Quiz 2, because we already have a Quiz 1. And you can go and create a category if you want, but you don't have to. I haven't seen that used a lot, but it's really up to you. But this is where you would actually create your questions. You can actually have a description of your quiz. Open that up there. If you want to give more details about the top or the bottom of the quiz, more instructions there. It's just basically what the students will see when they open up their quiz. These are some advanced features, like you can have it so it allows hints or disables the right click. You know, when you click right click, you can copy and paste things. If you want to disable that, disable them emailing inside of Brightspace when they're taking the quiz, you know, those types of things. If you want a specific email that when someone submits a quiz, you'll get that message. This is where you would put that. But if you don't want any of that stuff, you don't have to set that up. But you do need some questions. So let's go ahead and click add and edit questions. Now, again, this is where we could grab our questions from the question library, or we can get it from just creating them manually. There's two kinds of areas here. If you click import, it's going to give the option to browse the library or to upload a file. Uploading a file, specifically, it's a certain format. If we click on that, you'll see that you have to load it in a CSV file. If you click here, you can download the template and take a look and see what that looks like. They have to be in a certain order and have their commas in certain places. So if you have them already in a spreadsheet or in a Word document and you just want to make some edits, that is an option, but it does have to be in a specific format. And if you want to try that out, you can go ahead and do that. And you just kind of drag and drop it there in that area. It did have the learning repository. That's something that basically you can create a repository that everyone can access inside of Brightspace. Let's say your department has all these different questions they want to share. This is where you would kind of find those. That's something we're all brand new to Brightspace, so that really we haven't had time to kind of create the repositories, but that's where you would find that option. A lot of times you'll just go to this add here. You can either add a new question. If you have a new section, let's say you have a section for, part A of your exam, part B of the exam, maybe you have multiple choice in one area, short answer in another, that type of thing. That's why you would create sections. The question pool is where you would get your questions from the question library. Let me show you what that looks like. So basically you're going to have your first pool. Maybe it's this class, let's say it's on, history of Europe or something like that, And so this would be on maybe like the Middle Ages or something like that, that particular question pool. And then you can browse the questions here. You can choose which questions you're going to grab from. Basically, if you hit browse library, it'll just open up here, and then you can choose which ones you want to take. Like we saw the question library earlier, this is where you would just grab one. These have nothing to do with history of Europe, but let's say I grabbed that one and I hit import. Now I have a question. You can change your points. There were questions to select from. Let's say you had 10 questions and you just want to pick 5 of those out of your question pool randomly. That's where you would do that type of thing. And then you could have your pool here. You just keep adding questions to your pool and so forth. But I'm going to go ahead and cancel. The main thing is you can go here and hit new question. And new questions give you all the different options we saw in Sakai with the true, false, multiple choice. If we let's click multiple choice here. So it gives you your text box. If you click that here, it's going to give you all the different options we saw inside of Brightspace with, you can insert stuff, you can have pictures or different things. You can use equations, just whatever you want to do to describe the question. And then you can give your answers. Your answer is going to have very similar features. So if you want them to choose not just a text option or a picture, those types of things. If you want to have them have 5, you can have 5. Let's see here. Let's have what state is almost for Shepherd College. When I was a student, it was Shepherd College, so it was not Shepherd University. So we can have Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, and we're going to go ahead and only have 3 options, so we can change that there. You can have multiple options, and you must always pick the right answer. So we click that. You can randomize it, so different people take different questions. You'll see different answers. And you notice he also gives a preview over here on the right. So this is something we didn't have inside of Sakai. I think it's a really neat feature. And we just hit save. We can hit save and new, save and copy, I guess, if you want to have multiple versions of the question. We're just going to hit save. So that's our first question. And now let's add another question. True, false. Is the sky blue? I guess it depends, right? It depends on the weather and so forth. We're just going to mark true here. Hit save. And question 2. Let's say you actually put them in the wrong order. So you can basically just kind of drag them up and down. You can move them whatever direction you want. And that's how they'll show up. And if we go back to our settings, we just have 2 questions, but that's how you would set up your questions. And they're listed here. If you want to shuffle them at the quiz level, so maybe they're mixed up during the exam. If you want to have it so there's only so many questions per page, you can select that here. Let's say you have, 20 questions and you want them to only see one at a time, you could just put one. Some people have 100 questions. Maybe you want them to have 5 per page. It just depends. If you want them to not go backwards, that's up to you. And you can do that so they gotta have to keep going. It kind of helps sometimes prevent them from maybe looking up answers. If you need to edit points value and so forth.
If I may.
Oh yes, go ahead.
If I may ask. Yes, if I don't choose questions per page, then by definition, all questions will be displayed on one page.
Yes.
Okay, understood. Thank
Pretty
you.
sure that's the case. Yes. I thought that was the correct answer, but this confirms it for me. So, okay. Yeah, I remember doing a test and there was like 10 questions and they're all on one page. And they place these little cards so you kind of know how many you've done and so forth. And it's a pretty neat setup. It looks very clean for the students and so forth. But those are the different options you have there. But let's look under restrictions. Restrictions have to do with when it's available. Remember I said how it's default, it's always hidden. So if we uncheck that, and now we can have certain dates. So it's going to be due. I think it's giving me a week, looks like, by default, but you can always change that. But it's also available now. And it's unavailable after this date. So that means maybe it's due this date, but they can still maybe access it after, this date was different. It's kind of up to you how you set that. And you must check this to add it to the calendar. But again, this option was not available until you had a date. So that's just something to think about. Now there's release conditions you can add. It's not something we've talked about a lot, but it can be a kind of a neat and powerful tool to use. Let's say you want to add a release condition. There's none available now, but if you wanted to create one, you can create it based on content, or maybe they need to go over a checklist. Let's say somewhere in content, if you want them to read a particular item or a certain page or watch a certain video before they take the exam, then you could create this release condition. So they would have to go to that page, at least click on it to verify that they have done that, and then the test would be available to them. It's kind of a neat feature to try out. But it just depends on how you want to do it. There are these advanced restrictions here. This is where you would put a password, and that's not really going to apply to most people. But let's say you do have a class that's fully online, but you do want to use the RP Now system. RP Now gives the students, enables them to be proctored. You would need to put a password here to set that up, and then there'll be a password inside of RP Now, which is the same password. This is where you would add that area there. Some places actually have it so you have to use a certain computer range, but it can be more complicated. So I haven't seen a lot of people use that, but that option is there. This is where you would set your timing. It's interesting, in Sakai, it was always only one time. But here it gives you options. You have a recommended time or an enforced time. The enforced time does give you you could have like a grace period, but after that happens, then it will shut off. The recommended time, I guess, is just, I guess what it says. It's not going to shut off, but it's just there to help the students move along. And you can set it there so they can't make changes. So there's lots of neat options there to you. And this is where you would add the special access. Let's say a student comes to you and says that they have certain accommodations they need for their quizzes and so forth. Instead of creating like a separate quiz and making a group and all these different things you had to do at Sakai, you would just go to this special access area. I would probably select allow only users with special access to see this quiz. Well, no, I'm sorry. That's if it's a special quiz. This one is, this one, everyone will access it, but you click here. And what you'll do is you'll change the times to give them extra time, that type of thing. You can do that here, so forth. But here's where you add the student. You would search their name, or their name would be listed here, and you would check the box here, and you would give them the special access by adding them there. So it's a lot simpler than what we had in Sakai. This student is already given special access based off of just his username. I was showing you that in another video, and you hit special access there. We're going to override that. And when we see the quiz later, we'll see a little icon there, and it's going to signify that someone has special access. So now when we look to assessment, that's kind of how it's graded. Right now it's set for only one attempt, which is normal. But if you click here, it says allow attempt to be set as graded immediately. We check on that. And then the system will automatically grade that exam. If you have more than one, you can choose whether you want it to take the highest. Let's see, we're going to make it for. Then you could choose the highest, the lowest, the average. It's kind of up to you how you do that. Sometimes people use the quizzes just as a learning tool, and they make it unlimited until they maybe pass. Let's see here. Usually this is an option here. I'm not sure why it's not letting me do it here. Maybe it's because, let's see, learners. Okay. So if I had this unchecked, maybe it'll, it depends on the scenario, but you can have this checked so it'll only show the incorrect questions, and then the students can keep taking it till they pass, that type of thing. Objectives are basically, if you set learning objectives, you can add those there. It's not something we have a lot, but that's an option there for you. Under submission views is where you can give your feedback. By default, there's a certain view that everyone kind of has. You can create your own views, but I'm just going to show you what the default view looks like. And you can change it just for this quiz. You can add a certain message. This is what they receive normally. Right now, they don't receive any real feedback. What you can do is when you click yes, then this lights up and it shows what they see. They can see their score with all the questions. If you want to show them what the correct answers were or the incorrect, you can kind of go back and forth. It's really up to you. But by default, there's no feedback. So that's something to think about whenever you create a quiz. If you want to show them the class averages and so forth, but a lot of times you only want to show them their score. It's kind of up to you. And once you're done on it, you can just hit save. And it's going to save all your default view has changed. So, and then you can hit save and close and go back to your regular quiz. And this was quiz 2. Remember, we saw this little icon for that special access we gave. There's no hidden icon, so now the students can see it. And it has a date to when it's available and when it's closed. So that's something to keep in mind, because sometimes you'll see where someone will tell me, well, the students can't see their quiz, you know, and I'll go and I'll look and I'll see that the dates were passed, so they can't see it, you know. That's just something to bear in mind. But if you need to go in and grade your quiz, you would just hit this area here, go and hit grade. This one was done automatically because it's just a multiple choice, true, false. And you can see the different attempts that are made here. This is a brand new one, and there's just one student, and he hasn't taken this yet, so you can't really see that. But you can go and look at the questions. You can see, you know, how they did certain questions. If it was a good question, did everyone pass it? Did everyone not pass it? You can do all those type of evaluations. The grading individual here. The blind marking, that's interesting. I haven't actually seen this part here. Blind marking lets instructors grade the student response without the names of the students. Oh, okay. Maybe for a certain type of assignment that's, you just want to get a response, not necessarily knew who the students were. View graded responses. So these are different things you can look at after they have submitted their quiz and so forth. And this will show all the different users. You can click on their name and so forth. Since no one's attempted it, you can't look at that name yet. So the attempt logs, seen some classes with all the logs, and you can see when they have attempted the questions or the exams. If you set it as unlimited and there's multiple times they can attempt it, you can see that and so forth. We've had some students say they attempted it, but you can see if they have or not. What are those things? Yeah. And manage your exemptions. And if you just go back here to reset your quizzes area. So, and I mentioned a little bit about stats, but one last thing I wanted to mention is, yeah, you can go stats here and look at the different quizzes to see all the information about them. So these are a little empty because this is a brand new course. I just kind of set up for testing. So, but that's it in a nutshell. Did you have any questions regarding that?
Yes, I was wondering, Rich, so if I want to, if I have in that content, if I have my course organized in lessons, right, or modules, and then I create quiz separately, then how do I link a quiz? Right.
That's a great question. Great question. So we just go to our content area here. So yeah, you can create your quizzes ahead of time. You can create your assignments, discussions, all that ahead of time.
Yes.
Let's see, we're gonna go to week 2 here, and we just want to add our assignments and so forth. If we upload and create, we can go ahead and click new quiz here, and that's just takes you to the quiz tool, and you can create your quiz. But let's say you've already created one. Instead of going here, you would just go to existing activities. And we'll go down here and find our quizzes. Now it shows us our 2 options. So this one's already passed, so we're going to go ahead and pick this one. And it pops right in there. It gives you the dates, lets the students know what's going on, when it's due and so forth, and they can just click on it. And there you go. You can even go here and to view the topic. If you need to hide it for some reason, it gives you that option. Yep, so that's how you would add it to the content area.
Understood.
Awesome. And since it's part of the different topics here, if you needed to bulk edit something, you could go ahead and hide it. Make it something that's required, delete it there. Like if you had a lot of things in here, some cool thing about the content area. So.
Understood.
Sure. Did anybody else have any questions?
No, I mean, that was, that was very, very straightforward and clear.
Good.
Understood.
Oh, good. Let's see here. Let me go back to the quizzes area and just kind of show you a few of the other options that there were when creating questions. Let's go back to our quiz. And let's go ahead and add some more questions. And we click add. So we just kind of tested these. These are pretty straightforward, but you do have the other ones available. You could have arithmetic questions for math and so forth, the matching. A short answer is basically like, you just want them to type an essay or type a couple sentences in. It's pretty straightforward. They do have this text box here where they can insert things. This options area here is also in most of the questions if you want to have them to give a hint, that type of thing. Let's see here. If we fill in the blank, here we go. So fill in the blank, and Sakai had the very same thing. It can be a little complicated, but it does. Let's say you have a question written up here. This is the first part of it, and then this will be the second part. And then there's a word in here they need to answer. Let's say there's a definition and they need to fill that in exactly. This does give you the option to make it case sensitive or non, meaning let's say they don't spell it quite, they put a capital, that type of thing. I think that does need to be spelled correctly, but you can kind of weight that down, expand your hint area. That might be something to kind of test out on your own to see how that looks. But it does give that option, give you that option there. It can be a little more complicated, these types of questions. And they're generally ones that sometimes you have to be, I think this one actually grades itself, but the short answer, obviously you have to grade manually. Written response ones, let's see here. The matching can be complicated too. I think I did that, I've done that in Sakai. You would just have to, like, let's say these two here, you put these answers and you have to have two other ones that match. You could add other options. If that's something you want to test out. Let's see here. Let's go back. The ordering one. Let's see what that one looks like. Yeah, you give your options. Oh yeah, that's good. So you put your options in, then you have to change the order. Let's say you're doing it certain dates for a history class, and you put in, put in the order of these particular events, and they happen in a certain time period. This will be a great question to use it for that. So yeah, there's just other options you can have available. So if there's other questions, I was going to kind of head out for now. Again, if you have any other questions, you can always contact me or email IT work order. And just throw that out there. Next week, we're going to be talking more about the grades in Brightspace. I know with midterms coming, and just in general, the grades area can be a little more complicated. So we're going to talk about that next time. We're thinking maybe Kate may join us when we have like even a 2-day grades event, because it's important just to get our grades right and so forth. So any last questions?
Not from me. Everything was, quite clear and straightforward. Thank you, Rich.
All right.
I appreciate it.
No problem. Okay.
I will see you next week. Thank you.
See you next time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good.
Take care.